I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. Today we're talking about Hove. That's right, Jay-Z. Crazy for this one. Jay-Z is known as one of the greatest hip-hop artists of all time, but he's many more things than a musician. He's a business mogul who has turned his body of work and related ventures into a fortune of more than $1 billion. Many famous musicians and actors are offered the same lucrative deals that Jay-Z has access to, but few have been able to build an empire like the one he has created. He has cultivated his career to be extraordinarily profitable. This is what makes Jay-Z an excellent case study of success. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ross, and today we're going to see what lessons we can take from the absolutely massive triumph that has been Jay-Z's life. If you like this video, please click like and subscribe. For this video, I'll be drawing from the books Empire State of Mind by Zack O'Malley Greenburg and Decoded, the autobiography by Jay-Z. O'Malley Greenburg is a Forbes contributor and wrote Empire State of Mind as a business-focused look at Jay-Z's life and dealings. The most central element of Jay-Z's success is his ability to recognize ventures already related to his portfolio that offer him revenue with minimal risk. His business focus over time moved from street hustler to hip-hop artist to founding a clothing company to rehabilitating a vodka distillery to the presidency of a major record label to sports team ownership to athlete representation to founding his own music streaming platform. This is not to mention dozens of other sponsorship deals spanning shoes, cologne, cars, and even laptops, though those two have been exceptionally lucrative. Jay-Z grew up in the Marcy Projects in Brooklyn during the 1970s and 80s. There were few places more dangerous. He was remembered as a quiet child who kept to himself. He wasn't known to be competitive or confrontational in most aspects. He wasn't seen tearing up his school's basketball court, and he hasn't been remembered as a brash or loud child. He was introspective, and very obviously he had a great way with words. When it came to protecting his belongings, however, Jay was ruthless. At the age of 12, when his older brother stole one of his rings, Jay shot him in the shoulder. Later in life, when Jay's album The Life and Times of S. Carter leaked before its scheduled release, he stabbed the suspected leaker, Lance Riviera, in a nightclub. These events are emblematic of Jay-Z's persistence to protect anything he's earned. So our very quick profile of Jay-Z is that he's introspective and smart, with a very active and creative mind, while also being hyper-protective of his assets. Already we can see how his personality lends himself to be found in lucrative situations. The most obvious lesson visible in these books is that Jay-Z has built his brand with a strong singular image. Whether you're listening to one of his albums, drinking some of his Armand de Brignac champagne, or buying a new Hublot, you know that whatever product Jay-Z has attached his name to will have an air of luxury and status. Quality notwithstanding, Jay-Z's various brands have a cachet of wealth about them, which has proven to be self-fulfilling for Jay-Z himself. What was particularly enterprising of Jay was that early in his career when he was rapping about Cristal and Rolexes, he realized he was giving free advertising to those companies. Now rather than pad the bank accounts of those luxury brands, Jay wanted to put that revenue in his own pocket. He bought his own stake in Armand de Brignac champagne and started name-dropping it in place of Cristal. Sales skyrocketed while champagne connoisseurs insisted it was one of the worst deals in the liquor store. In the 2011 single Otis, Jay exclaimed, "New watch alert, Hublot." He went on to release his own collaboration with Hublot, Sean Carter timepieces, which ranged from $18,000 to $34,000. Jay has done his best to own every aspect of his work. Instead of rapping for a label in his early days, Jay founded Rockefeller Records with Damon Dash, saying that he raps for himself. After Rockefeller was acquired as a division of Def Jam Recordings, he negotiated each of his recording contracts to allow him to own the original master recordings of his songs, which, although becoming somewhat more common in music, had been fairly unheard of in the 90s and early 2000s when Jay was establishing himself. Jay-Z eventually ascended to the presidency of Def Jam, where he's remembered as an effective and attentive manager. Now, onto our blueprint. Number 1, learn from your network and implement. On the track Feelin' It from the album Reasonable Doubt, Jay-Z rapped, "If everybody in your clique is rich, your clique is rugged. Nobody would fall because everyone would be each other's crutches." Empire State of Mind is loaded with interviews of the people who were present for or integral to Jay-Z's rise. Damon Dash grew alongside Jay, first as co-founder of Rockefeller and as Jay's manager, then as co-founder of Rockaware. When Rockefeller was acquired, Jay's network grew to include hip-hop mogul Russell Simmons, the founder of Def Jam. The stepping stones then progressed through the business elite as Jay-Z became the face of the enormous real estate development deal as the New Jersey Nets moved to a new stadium in Brooklyn. At the opening ceremony of the Barclays Center, Jay stood alongside New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg. From that level of social standing, it wasn't too far for Jay to have a direct line to the Oval Office via his relationship with President Barack Obama. Jay-Z's network really is his greatest asset. As an underprivileged kid living in the Marcy Projects in Brooklyn, Jay-Z's ladder to the elite was the people he surrounded himself with. What did Jay-Z do with his network? He learned from them and implemented their teachings. After that point, he grew beyond them. When Jay had the well-established brand of Rockefeller Records behind him, he bought Damon Dash out of his share of Rockaware, and the two haven't been on good terms since. This is a recurring theme through Empire State of Mind, that Jay-Z has burned bridges with several of his former colleagues and business partners. This is one aspect of his path that is not worth emulating. After Jay and Dash split, Jay then took the helm at the top of Def Jam Records and learned from his colleagues at Def Jam and UMG. After 4 years at the helm, he declined to extend his contract and instead went on to form his own multimedia business, Roc Nation, which has since been the home for the vast majority of Jay-Z's dealings. One of the first deals that Roc Nation was host to was a $150 million agreement with Live Nation to promote Jay-Z's concerts and music for 10 years. The scope and value of that deal was nearly unheard of before it happened. Jay was able to negotiate that with the skills he learned at Def Jam. You can see how Jay continually grows his skills and portfolio by taking on deals in increasingly various industries. He plays to his strengths and is exceptionally good at hedging his risks, which takes us to the next lesson. Number 2, know your limits. Jay-Z turned heads when he first entered the world of sports agency. Robinson Cano in the 2013 season terminated his contract with the well-established agent Scott Boras in order to hire Jay-Z to represent him for his upcoming free agency. At this point, Jay-Z had sold off his stake in the Brooklyn Nets, which he publicly played off as him starting his new fandom for the team, removing his financial incentives so that he might enjoy the sport for what it is. Now, what he was really doing was removing any ownership that could be construed as a conflict of interests in his future dealings as a sports agent. Jay-Z was quickly licensed to become an agent in the MLB and NBA, and his first task was securing a $310 million 10-year contract for Robinson Cano. Teams scoffed at the amount, and for a brief period it seemed that Cano was going to have to settle for far less to get out of free agency, even settling for a few $1,000,000 less than slightly underperforming teammates. However, Jay-Z was able to eventually secure Cano a contract with the Seattle Mariners, 10 years for $240 million, which ranks as the third most valuable sports contract of all time and was $10 million better than the next closest bidder. That's what Jay wants us to think. But really, he was the face of the contract and let the majority of the negotiation be handled by CAA Sports, the subsidiary of the massive creative agency. Brody Van Wagenen, head of CAA Sports, insists that Jay was instrumental to the negotiation, though sources close to the deal say that Van Wagenen did the majority of the heavy lifting. This is not to undermine Jay-Z's part of the deal. He was a large part of the tremendous marketing this agreement had swirling around it, and he made good use of his charisma to please both sides of the deal. What he was getting out of this agreement, besides his commission, was knowledge of how the sports agency business works. As soon as Jay had the experience he needed, he went out independently. In 2015, Roc Nation ended its partnership with CAA Sports and has since gone on to represent dozens of athletes throughout the NBA, MLB, NFL, and other leagues. What Jay did in this scenario that was inspired was that he knew he could increase the media frenzy around the deal, thus increasing the market of potential suitors, but he knew he couldn't spearhead it. He quietly allowed Van Wagenen to take the helm, which led to the success of the Cano deal, which became the tentpole for Roc Nation Sports' future growth. Now, for every bombastic brag that Jay-Z has on one of his albums, there's another report by insiders of him being introverted and, most importantly, calculated. He knows that true wisdom is knowing that you don't know everything. He allows himself to dominate new fields by surrounding himself with the resources that he needs to succeed. Usually this means hiring experts, thus expanding his network like we talked about earlier, and hedging himself from suffering the unsecured risk of ignorance. Jay-Z's a risk taker, but he's not reckless. This is not to say that all of Jay-Z's deals have been home runs. There were lots of lessons learned along the way that brought him to the point where he is now, which takes us to lesson number 3, which is a lyric from Jay-Z's song Smile. A loss ain't a loss, it's a lesson. This is likely the most concise way to sum up a lesson that many hyper-successful people would say they subscribe to. This lyric summarizes the core idea of the book Principles by Ray Dalio, who is the founder of Bridgewater Associates, the most successful hedge fund in history. Each loss that you encounter through your career and personal life offers you an opportunity to learn and better yourself. Even though you might be finding yourself in a momentary rut from a recent failure, if you can step back from the situation, clear your mind, and analyze it from a learning standpoint, you are effectively ensuring that you will never repeat the same mistake again. As illustrated in Principles, a series of failures followed by the implementation of learned lessons creates an upward path. That's how nearly all successful people have come to where they are. Jay-Z wasn't a billionaire overnight, nor was his path from the street corner to the corner office smooth. He's produced business deals that may be seen as regrettable, such as albums that were critically panned, deals that lost him money, or sponsored products that had been panned as cheap, thinly veiled cash grabs. He didn't let these losses deter him from making new deals with other brands and persistently growing his presence. After his critically panned album Kingdom Come, Jay released his album American Gangster, which was met with acclaim, not to mention the fact that it came out 2 weeks after the release of the 2007 Ridley Scott movie of the same name. After early opinion said that Armand de Brignac was overpriced swill, Jay pushed the champagne to be recognized as a valid offering among the luxury champagne market. One could even argue that it helped legitimize the luxury alcohol market farther. He went on to acquire a cognac brand, Doucet, which has been recognized as a smooth drinking budget offering in the cognac market. One of Jay's most recent albums, 444, which the Smile lyric appeared on, is recognized as him making known his acceptance of his past mistakes. As he has aged, his public image has adapted to recognize that he hasn't always been perfect or correct, and his brand carries on. Though there are few public gaffes of Jay-Z's that we can reminisce on, very few people remember those when his name comes up. What is larger than his failures is his multiple successes, which only happened because of his persistence and his ability to learn from his mistakes. In his track Beach Chair, Jay said, "I'm not afraid of dying, I'm afraid of not trying." In his life examples, we see the success that somebody can enjoy when they remove roadblocks from themselves and move forward. If you found this video informative, please like and subscribe. If you would like to read Decoded or Empire State of Mind, you can buy them through the link below. For the topics in this video, I drew mainly on Empire State of Mind, which has a business perspective, though Decoded is an equally interesting look inside Jay-Z's creative mind to understand the thought process behind his lyrics and context for the various business cases in his life. If you'd like to ask me anything about these books, or if you have any thoughts after watching this, please leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and for now, I'm on to the next one.